Hello, this is Mark Kelleher, Senior Analyst at D.A. Davidson. Wanted to do a brief technology overview of Intel's tick-tock product strategy. The tick-tock strategy from Intel has been at the core of their architectures. They've been the heartbeat of technology for the last 10 years or so. It was in the news last week when Intel put out their numbers and announced that they would be deviating from that tick-tock strategy. Actually going to alter that, and that has some interesting ramifications for all of technology, really. But we wanted to talk about how that might affect Supermicro, how Supermicro benefits from the tick-tock strategy, and what we might look for in the future from Supermicro. Okay, let's take a look at Intel's tick-tock strategy. There's a few things to understand before we get into this in some detail. First, we'll talk about the process nodes. These are the line widths of the etch within a CPU. And the smaller you can make those line widths, the faster you can make the CPU go. So a line node in this table starts at 45 nanometers back in 2007. Then we migrate to 32 nanometers, 22 nanometers, 14 nanometers where we're sitting today, and 10 nanometers where Intel is trying to go. A TOC, well, let me start with a tick. A tick is the same functionality from one processor to the next processor, but we've shrunk the line widths. So we've gone faster, we've gone less power, but it's the same functionality. A TOC means that we've introduced new functionality. Intel's put new functions in there. They've taken functionality perhaps from the motherboard and incorporated it into the CPU. It's a new and better capabilities. There are two other things to keep in mind. One is the place where we're looking for those to enter the server market. That's the Xeons. The Xeons are the servers, the Pentiums are the PCs. Typically, when a new architecture gets introduced, whether it's a shrink of die size or shrink of width size, or if it's a new functionality, those come in on the PCs and then they move up to the servers. The servers actually have three different product lines. It's the E3, which is usually a single processor, the E5, which is a dual or quad processor, and then you get E7, which is targeted for the very high functionality going into the high performance computing market. Where Supermicro typically comes into play is when the E5 gets introduced. So let's start at the top left and kind of work our way back from November 2007 and take a look at what Intel has done. Intel, starting with the 45 nanometer process node, they had a processor called Penrin. That came out in November of 2007. And then that was a tick, and then they came out with a TOC. They came out with new capabilities, new functionality, same process node at 45 nanometers, but new functionality, and they called that Nehalem. So we went to Nehalem, and then with that functionality, with that Nehalem functionality, Intel shrunk to 32 nanometers to Westmere. So Nehalem and Westmere are the same processor, just a different die size. Then we go to staying on 32 nanometer. We have a new TOC. We have Sandy Bridge. Sandy Bridge came out with new functionality, and then we shrunk that to Ivy Bridge. So you can see that the same functionality, which comes out on a TOC, tends to have the same similar name. So Sandy Bridge to Ivy Bridge, Nehalem and Westmere, Haswell and Broadwell, those are all the same functionality, but the second one is at a more narrow line width, and it's faster and it is more power efficient. So let's bring it up to today. What we are on right now is the 14 nanometer. We've done a tick. We went from Haswell to Broadwell. But Broadwell is just making its way up through the PCs right now. Broadwell hasn't come up into the servers. The servers right now are on Haswell. And you can see the E5 release of Haswell was done in October of 2014. So that was just last October, and we're expecting that to continue to be Haswell to continue to be the dominant player, dominant CPU in the server market until Broadwell makes its way up, and I would guess that that's probably January of 2016 when Broadwell comes up. And these are new product cycles. These are going to give a boost to Supermicro whenever anything new comes out. When either it's a tick or a TOC, every year, every 16 months, that gives a new boost to the server market in one sense or another. Now, to go back to what Intel said recently, looking forward, going into the future, Broadwell will then have a new talk. There'll be a new talk after that, new functionality after the Haswell-Broadwell combination, and that'll be Skylake. And you can see our estimated time of when that's going to arrive, sometime in late 2015 into the PC market, and then May 2017 would be our estimate for the server market, where the E5 release comes out and Supermicro sees it. But what should then have happened is Skylake and Kaby Lake should have had the same functionality, but Kaby Lake should have been at 10 nanometers. But Intel's having difficulty getting the process to work at 10 nanometers. So they are going to put a third. Kaby Lake won't shrink down to 10 nanometers. Kaby Lake will be at 14 nanometers. So Kaby Lake is going to be a TOC. It's going to be a new architecture, not a shrunk die size. So you've gone 14 nanometers, 3 in a row, and then they'll try to get to 10 nanometers, and that will probably won't reach the market, even in the PCs, until late 2007. So that is a long way out there that Intel can work on that 10 nanometers. So you can kind of see the timing there. First they come out, tick tock, die size, new functionality. But for the first time in a decade, Intel is not able to keep up with Moore's law. They're not able to get that 10 nanometers in the appropriate time frame. So they're being delayed. So because they're putting a talk in there, that talk is going to add a year. They're going to go a year behind where they should be. Now that doesn't really affect Supermicro. And remember, whenever something new comes out, Supermicro benefits. The CPU, the server cycle repeats. So Broadwell, Skylake, Kaby Lake, even though it'll be on 14 instead of 10, it'll be a new talk. It'll have new functionality. So that's what Intel's going to give the server makers to make sure that the server makers have new product out. So an interesting development there. Wanted to go into that in that detail, and I'll leave it there for now. One last slide I wanted to show on Supermicro was how the tick-tock architecture has worked to the company's benefit. Supermicro incorporates the new technology, the new Intel CPUs, and gets to market very quickly with very good engineering. And these are the revenue numbers. This chart is showing revenue for the last 11 years by quarter. These are the quarters going all the way back to September 2004. And you can see that the new product cycle from Intel has benefited Supermicro significantly. That last bar all the way to the right, that's an estimate. That's what we're looking for Supermicro to report this quarter, just over 500 million, 510 million. But as you can see, the rate of growth of the company has actually been accelerating over the last several quarters, actually over the last couple of years. So we expect this to continue. So Supermicro and Intel working well together.